Today I want to talk to you about conscious activism. Conscious activism. Why we must raise our consciousness to heal a wounded planet. Why we must raise our consciousness to heal a wounded planet. Many of you I know have been moved and touched by the events that have taken place in Ferguson, Missouri. The young man, Mike Brown, was killed in the streets, shot, I think, 10 times by a white policeman. And he laid in the street for about a couple of hours or more until finally they covered him. And we as black people in America have been systematically outgunned and outnumbered. We have seen so many stories like this. Trayvon, some other people, and throughout the years, 100 years of lynching have taken place where injustices have been done against our people. Tonight we're gonna show a film, or this afternoon we're gonna show a film called Hidden Colors 3. I want to invite all of you to come. It's talking about the rules of racism. I really feel that it's important that in light of what's going on around the world, Israeli-Palestinian conflict, the racial unevenness that's going on throughout our nation, we see and hear more about domestic conflicts happening between men and women, many times ending in violence. And then again, the police brutality, and then just regular crime that happens in our community. And so today, I felt it's important that I need to prepare the young people, which is why we're going to show the film tonight, so they can have an understanding of the context in which they live. Because I really believe that we are really dealing with some dark forces that have truly targeted our children. And we have to address that from a spiritually conscious perspective. But I also want to have a moment at the end of our service to pray for these children as they enter school tomorrow. I want to put a spirit of protection. I want to give our young people a guardian. Talking about Angel. I want to give them a guardian so that when they go to school protected. I think that we as a people have to begin, as church people I'm talking about, we have to really begin to look at the power of prayer and the power of the Spirit and begin to use angels and other spiritual tools that we have to cover our children as they go out into the world. I find so many times that we as church people are as materialistic and as de-spiritual as people who don't even go to church. It's like prayer is the last thing that we do, when it should be the first thing that we do to cover our children. And so that's what I want to do. But in the context of all of this, I want to ask a deeper question to those of us who consider ourselves conscious. What role do conscious people play in addressing the issues of racism, violence, domestic abuse, crime, poverty? We know that for the most part, we have churches on every block, particularly in our community. And yet those very communities where churches are on every block, where people are raising and praising God, are some of the most economically collapsed environments, crime-ridden environments, poverty and uneducated environments that exist. Something is wrong with that. So it's time that we have to become activists. We have to get the salt out of the shaker. Jesus says, you are the salt of the world. You are the light, you're the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. Well, what does that mean? While we're trying to be members of churches, maybe the call of God is that we become disciples that we learn how to bring our awareness to a wounded community, to a wounded nation, to a wounded planet. The planet today, Earth, is suffering. And so with that in mind today, I want to talk to you about conscious activism, why we must raise our consciousness to heal a wounded planet. Many of you have heard the statement where it says, be the change that you want to see in the world. You've heard me quote many times the quote by Albert Einstein, the difficult problems we face today cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we had when we created them. So, what do these quotes imply? What do these quotes imply? I believe it suggests that in order for us to heal this wounded planet, the people of the earth must evolve their consciousness. I want you to know that the condition of our planet, the condition of our local environment is in juxtaposition to the level of consciousness that occupies that environment. And if we are conscious people, spiritually conscious people, then that reality should impact in some kind of way the life and the lifestyle of that community. So I'm putting a challenge to all of us here this morning to begin to look at the danger of what happens when we don't develop our spiritual awareness. I call this conscious activism. Well, what is conscious activism? And the great question is, how do we evolve the masses? What impact, what effect do we have on the masses? When you look at the masses of people, people are in every type of category. Not just racial, not just gender, not just class or economic, but even also intensity or commitment to spirituality. So the great question is, in this world that we live in, how do conscious people make a difference in a world of unconscious people? It's a great thought. It's a great thought. Because that's the challenge. That's the challenge to all my conscious black people who look at our people and we begin to say, why do our boys sag pants? Why are our kids lagging behind? Why is there so much attitude in a lot of young girls that don't get along with this? And we want to know ourselves, how do you impact a generation that is more concerned about their cell phones than they are their own evolution, their own spirituality? We ask the question to teachers, who teach in the school, how do you reach the masses when you have so much disinterest in things of knowledge? We ask that to conscious people in the church and outside the church. How do you speak to people who don't really want to hear what you're talking about? So what is the challenge that we have? Therefore, I want to talk about the challenge of conscious activism. And we'll look at that from the Matthew chapter 10, verse 16. And then I want to look at the choice of conscious activists. The choice of conscious activists. And we'll look at that, the second scripture found in Matthew chapter 10. That is found in Matthew 10, verses 11 through 14. And then finally, we want to conclude with the consequence of conscious activism. And we'll look at that in Romans chapter 8, verse 19 through 21. But first of all, let's look at the challenge of conscious activism. Jesus says in the scripture found in Matthew 10, verse 16, "Behold, I send you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. Therefore be wise as serpents and harmless as doves." In this verse here, the consequence or the challenge is set before us. We, as conscious people, our greatest tool that we have to change the world is not necessarily politics. That's important. It's not necessarily economics. That's really important. But our greatest tool to really impact the society is our consciousness. Our consciousness in terms of our understanding and the use of our words. And Jesus says right here, behold, I send you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. Right there you understand that when you step out here and you have a different understanding, a higher perspective, when you step out into this world, you have a greater knowledge of what reality is and what's really going on. You are being sent as sheep in the midst of wolves. Now, what do wolves do to sheep? They eat them. They eat them. They devour them. So right there, we know that we are outgunned and we're outnumbered. Because when it comes down to the intensity and the will of a wolf to eat, oftentimes it's greater than the sheep to run. And therefore, what we understand here, brothers and sisters, that when you step out into this world, and many of you have chosen to say, I want to live an evolved spiritual life. I want to live a conscious life. Right there, you must understand, when you go on your job and you are conscious, when you go to school and you are conscious, when you even come to church and you are conscious, you will have opposition. Why? Because many people don't want to evolve. They don't want to know what you know. They don't want to grow. They have chosen to run from knowledge. They have chosen to run from the truth. They have chosen to run from the knowledge of self. If you really want to see people get mad, if you really want to see people organize against you, speak conscious truth in the midst of them. People who you thought that were your friends, people who you thought were your brothers, people who you thought were supportive of you, will turn on you. I like what Public Enemy says, every brother ain't a brother because of color. If you look at the experience of Malcolm X, he fell at the hands of a brother. COINTELPRO, the J. Edgar Hoover spy program, actually used a black man to spy on Malcolm. Same thing true with Martin Luther King Jr. And Martin came speaking peace and love and unity. And yet the system conspired against him. Why? Because it did not want to change. You think that's just true for them? It's true for every last one of us. We are sent as sheep in the midst of wolves. This is not a game. It's not easy. Even in church, you would think that would be the most logical place where you can have conscious communications, where you can talk about truth and justice and what's real. And yet, most church people, though they in church, they have chosen not to evolve their spiritual understanding. And when you put the challenge to them, they will organize and work against you. One of the things, brothers and sisters, that I discovered a little bit later on in my sojourn here for the last 28 years in this city, because I have taken up the banner of raising people's understanding. And I remember very clearly when I brought the issues of the plight of black people and their lack of knowledge of their history to this church and to the community as well. There were many people who opposed that. People who, in my own naivete, I was shocked by it. I assumed as a young child many times that the very people who taught me the books of the Bible, who taught me about the love of God, I thought they would be the first people to respond to a deeper and more elegant truth. But what I discovered is that many times, even in church, people are so committed to their limited understanding, their doctrines, their ways, their traditions, same as Jesus. They love the traditions of men over the commandments of God. You don't think it was just simply, when we look at the story of Jesus, you don't think it was just simply those no good Roman soldiers who crucified Jesus, do you? No, it was the religious leaders, because they were more committed to their religious perspective than they were to evolving the consciousness of the people, which Jesus came to do. Do you think it's any different today? I challenge many of you who are physicians, who actually go and you study melanin and you study alternative medicines. Try to enforce that in your medical communities and see what kind of response you get. I encourage you teachers who have read Brother Lamb's book called Black and Amos Wilson's book called Black Power, or Carter G. Woodson's book called The Miseducation of the Negro. I challenge you teachers to take, in a school population that is majority black, I challenge you to raise the consciousness of those students, be they black or white, doesn't matter, because they both need it. The fact is, I challenge you to do that and monitor the response you get from administration. They'll try to shut you down, and many people have even lost their lives, they lost their jobs, sometimes they even lost their family. I send you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. So what do? Jesus said what? Be as wise as serpents and harmless as doves. What that means is that to be wise as a serpent, is to be sharp in your mind. It means to be quick in your thought. It means to have a disciplined understanding that can critically divide, and can critically strike where a lie is being told. But he says, be as harmless as doves. And that means to not be too snake-like, but have an innocence about you. Okay? To be tough-minded, I like the way Dr. King said it, to be tough-minded like the serpent, but tender-hearted like the dove. And I'll be honest with you, that's what a conscious activist, that's the challenge of a conscious activist, to be able to control his passions and his love for the people. Because I can tell you from my own personal experience, many times I have not balanced tough-mindedness and tender-heartedness. Because sometimes you can be so tough-minded that it scares people. Your passion, your desire for change, and your desire for people to grow and to learn. Then sometimes you can be too dove-like, and people don't respect, and people don't truly appreciate what you're saying, and therefore you're not tender-hearted enough, or you're not tender-hearted enough, and you can get so angry at what's going on in your community. You can get so angry at the black leadership. You can get so angry at the society. You can get so angry at the church that you'll be like Moses and you'll strike that rock twice and cost your own self entry into the promised land of joy and peace. You can be so passionate about wanting to see your children live in a good neighborhood or wanting to see your children excel that you forget that it's not about you, it's about the children. You forgot the tenderheartedness. So the challenge of being in this world is that you have to have a little Malcolm, tough-mindedness, and you got to have a little Martin, tenderheartedness, and you got to bring it together. I truly believe that actually is the symbolic message of Malcolm and Martin in America, because we needed them both. We need the tough-mindedness of Malcolm to call out the problems and who were the perpetuators of the problem. You need a tough person like Malcolm. And we in our own community, because we didn't understand the man, many people called him violent, and they called him a hater. And then God raised up a Martin King who spoke love, tenderheartedness. And because of our fear of his program of social action, non-direct, non-violent social action, we put him down and created a context whereby he could be assassinated. The challenge is all of you who want to make a difference in this world, I know all of you want to make a difference, is that you have to evolve your consciousness in a world that's filled with wolves. And you cannot allow them to make you afraid, that you don't have courage, and you cannot allow them to steal your love, where you will overreact to the problems. You must be tough-minded and tender-hearted. The second thing I want to talk about is the choice of a conscious activist. In the verse here, real quick, Jesus sends out these disciples into the world. And I want you to notice what he says. And whatever city or town you enter, inquire who in it is worthy and stay there until you go out. And when you go into a household, greet it. If the household is worthy, let your peace come upon it. But if it is not worthy, let your peace return to you. And whoever will not receive you, nor hear your words, when you depart from that house or city, shake off the dust from your feet. And this is a very profound thing, because many times as activists, we're not conscious of the receptivity of the people to the message. I am truly guilty of that. Because sometimes you're so passionate about what you're doing, you're so passionate about your people, so passionate about your community, you believe that you want everybody to hear. You want everybody to be saved. And you spend a lot of time, and we spend a lot of time working with those who are not worthy. Trying to win those who can't be won. The truth of the matter is, what Jesus is saying, don't waste your time casting pearls to swine. We have to realize that not everybody wants to know. Not everybody wants to grow. Some people want to stay asleep. You ever notice that everybody don't wake up at the same time? Think about that. Everybody does not wake up at the same time. Some people sleep longer than others. Some people wake up earlier than others. That's the same thing true spiritually. Not everybody is ready to learn. Not everybody is ready and willing to evolve. Not everybody wants your truth. Not everybody wants your love. It's kind of like a man who spends all his time going after a woman who does not want him. And she gives him every indication that I don't want to be with you. I want a thug. I want a roughneck. It's like a woman who puts all her attention trying to change somebody who is telling you, I don't want to change. I like doing what I'm doing. And what happens? You invest your energy, you invest your time, you invest your talent, you invest your money, and the person turns and throws it right back at you. And you get upset, and you get mad, and you curse, and you become evil, and you get mad. What does this say to us of conscious activists? A conscious activist is not just an activist. He's conscious of the receptivity. Listen to me now. A conscious activist is conscious of the receptivity of the environment. Why do you think God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah? It's because he couldn't find 10 righteous men. The city had become so corrupt, even though Abraham wanted to save the people. If we follow the story, he said, well, if I find 50, will you save it? I said, sure. Couldn't find 50. If I can find 40, would you save it? Yes. Couldn't find 40. If I can find 20, would you save it? Yes. Couldn't find 20. If I could find 10 righteous men, conscious people who are receptive to the truth, would you save it? Would you spare it? God said yes. Abraham couldn't find 10, and and the only person in that community that had a spiritual heart open to the thought of God was within his family. And even them, and even with them, his wife wasn't with him. That's why she looked back. It was, in the end, it was nothing more than him and his 2 daughters. And what did they do? They committed incest with their father. What does that mean? That some environments, even though we may want them to grow, even though we may want them to survive, they are destined for destruction. There are people that are not ready and willing to hear the truth. And even though you may have a bleeding heart, and even though they may be in your own family, even though they may be people that you grew up with, the fact is, you're not going to change. I'm telling you something that I have not always understood, have not always accepted. But it has been to my hurt, it has been to my shame, that I had to come to understand that this is what we have to do as conscious activists. We must make a choice to win the winnable, to work with those who are worthy, to reach the reachable. I know as our people, we don't like to hear that because we believe everybody can be saved. We believe everybody can get it. And everybody can get it to a certain extent. But everybody will not get it, and everybody is not ready to get it. And instead of us spending our time and spending our efforts trying to reach people who don't want to be reached, instead of trying to win people who don't want to be won, instead of trying to work with people who are not worthy of your truth, who are not worthy of your love, who are not worthy, we have to learn to let them go. Take your peace from them. Shake the dust off the feet and leave them. Because what you will do, you will waste countless money, time, and energy. And the end result, you'll feel like you have wasted your life and your effort. And the bottom line is, you then begin to feel burnt out because you're not getting the effect that you look for from the investment that you make. Now, I know many of us don't like this because it sounds like a type of discrimination, but a conscious activist does discriminate consciously, not based on ego, but based upon the truth and the reality. He says very clearly, if the household is worthy, if the community is worthy, if the person is worthy, if the church is worthy, let your peace abide with them. But if it is not worthy, if they don't show interest, if they have not made a commitment to evolution and growth, spiritual knowledge and growth, let them go. Because some people only God can reach in time. And I think that one of the main reasons why we're so adamant about doing what we're doing with people, I think is because our ego gets involved. And we want to make it happen. And the Lord is saying, you can't make people change. As a matter of fact, it's not your job to change people. It's your job to share the truth. It's your job to share your experience. And if they cannot accept you, and if they don't want you, and if they're not responding to you, that's cool. Walk away, move on, and leave it up to God in their time when they are ready. Shake the dust off your feet. Finally, let's look at the last verse. The consequence of conscious activism. I want you to look at verse 19 of chapter 8 of Romans through verse 21 with me. Read this with me. For the earnest expectation of the creation eagerly waits for the revelation of the Son of God. Let me look at that again. For the earnest expectation of the creation, eagerly waits for the revealing of the sons of God. For the creation was subjected to fertility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it in hope. Because the creation itself also will be delivered from bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the children of God. I want to understand the relationship between this planet's evolution and our evolution. We're talking about we waiting for Jesus to return. Isn't it interesting that Paul says here that creation is waiting for you to return to the knowledge of yourself. The creation is waiting for us to evolve because our lack of evolution, spiritual evolution, is causing a cancer on the planet. The more greedy, the more malicious, the more violent, the more ignorant, the more competitive we are, the more we see storms and hurricanes and nature being destructive. Because the planet is crying out, grow up, man. The planet is crying out, wake up, humanity. The planet is asking for the sons of God, which are us, you and me, to become who we really are. You see, if you want a better world, you must become a better person. If you want a more dynamic community, black folk, then we have to raise the consciousness of ourselves and the consciousness of those in our community who want change. We must win the winnable, work with the worthy, and reach the reachable, because we are the key to seeing our community, seeing our church, seeing our world get better. So I want you to understand, when we resist knowledge, when we resist truth, when we resist evolution, when we resist conscious evolution, when we are more committed to our traditions that are based in ignorance, when we are more committed to ourselves and not connected to one another, when we are committed to selfishness and not love, when we do not develop our minds to be tough-minded and tender-hearted, it reflects back in terms of the planet, reflecting back to us what we have put forth to it. That's why I preach the sermons that I preach. That's why I can't do it alone. That's why I teach what I teach. That's why I appeal to you to a point. Because I have learned now that if you don't want it, if you don't want to grow, if you don't want to excel, if you don't want to improve, there is nothing I can say today or 10 years from now that will make a difference in your heart. And I want to close with this story. You ever wondered why the children of Israel, the first generation, who saw, in the story as it goes, the mighty hand of God move them out of bondage and move them into the promised land, or moving them into the promised land? Let's decode the story. You ever wonder why that first generation circled in the wilderness? This is the story now. Circled in the wilderness for 40 years is because they had a leader like Moses who got the word from God. I'm just decoding the Bible. And when it came time for them to go and get and possess the land they call the promised land, they listened to the negative report that there were giants in the land and we can't do it. Then they listened to the good report that says God is with us. Let's go get it. They made one decision, and because of that decision, they were doomed to go in circles for 40 years. That generation had to die in the wilderness, and it was the next generation, the youth, that possessed the land. What is that story trying to tell us? Brothers and sisters, the reason why we may not be seeing progress in our church, in our community, among our people, is because we may have missed the window and the door of opportunity. And God has declared, you will not enter into the door of your Lord on this earth. You're going to go nowhere. And the job of the leader then begins the job of managing people who are going nowhere. Movement, but no progress. I want to declare to you, that's not for me. That's not for me. I was talking, and I'm going to go to my seat here, I was talking to one of our aldermen the other day. I'm not going to mention his name. And he was complaining about the fact that we got to get the current mayor out of office, and we got to put a black person back in the mayor's seat. And we got to, this is a black town, black town, black town. I said, brother, I hate to tell you, you're wasting your time. You had an opportunity, 2 terms of black leadership. What did you do with it? What did our own people do with it? You have had a majority black city council for some time. You have black men or women who are heads of your schools in the city of Pine Bluff. You have had chief of police and fire chief black in this city. You are the majority of this city. And ask yourself, how has your neighborhoods changed? How has crime reduced itself? How has prosperity manifested itself? What did the people do other than look for some black messiah to come and do for them what they were not willing to do for themselves? And now your solution is to go back and do it in the same way that when the people heard that God said, you cannot now enter the promised land, and then they said, well, we're going to go take it now, and God shut them down. Because sometimes when you miss the window of opportunity, it does not come open again until 30 or 40 years later, past your time. I told the alderman, I said, the best thing and the wisest thing you can do right now for the next 50, maybe 100 years from now, is to know how to manage a city in decline. Because we as the people of this community have not acted responsibly and revealed our true nature. Now we must pay the price for that rebellion. That's why I appeal to you this morning, before it's too late for you and for us, evolve your consciousness. Be the change that you want to see in the world. What did I say? You be the change that you want to see in the world. And each one teach one. Find those people in your community who think like you, who desire what you desire, and you come together and you begin to talk. Find those people who want to grow spiritually. Find those people who want to evolve. Find those people. I know you don't know where they are, but put the message out there. Spread the seed and see who's attracted to it, who comes to it. And those become the people that you fellowship with. Those become the people that you talk and communicate with. And those become the people who become active with you to change the world. I close with this final quote. Again, you've heard me say it before from Albert Einstein. The difficult problems we face today cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were at when we created. You must evolve your consciousness and become a conscious activist. God bless you.